In fact, it's almost pretty much the opposite.
Not every time. Sometimes. If they make
What
memes
time? What time?
There's a lot of memes from...
You can't think.
What do people like? That there's a lot of memes with superhero movies. How many Gauntlet memes are there? A million. There's a ton of Lord of the Rings memes.
I rest my case.
Yeah.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Popcorn Bucket List. We were off last week. Well, we tried to do something, and then some weird technological fluke that I have no idea how I pulled off happened. I was really disappointed. We had a funny bit there at the beginning. Yeah, we're back here. We're back in the studio. It's shinier. They waxed the floor on us. We slipped on our way in about 3 times.
Nice.
You guys almost got a chance to... If we had kept the cameras rolling, it would have been Popcorn Bucket List on ice down here.
Ooh.
We had just...
Ooh.
What if we just turn the cameras and we just like skate on with our
we could just
socks?
Throw them across. I should have brought my curling broom.
Yeah. Popcorn Bucket List on ice right there for you. We're going to talk about something big news that happened over this past weekend. In case you didn't know already, just because it's important to know the difference between whether or not someone is laughing with you or at you.
Correct.
Sony learned the hard way that people were laughing at them and not with them.
Yes.
As they re-released Morbius into the theaters this past weekend, quote, because they thought there was so much interest because of all of the memes. I wish I was making that up. I have not gone to business school. I'm not good at financial stuff. I am not that great of a strategist. I can tell you that's a dumb strategy.
Yes.
And it was. It was a dumb strategy.
I remember hearing somewhere the amount of money that they did make versus the amount of theaters that they released it to. And I want to say it was like each theater made like $80 a day. Like that was it.
Yeah, that was it.
That's like 8 tickets. Like 10 people went to it.
Yeah, per theater. And yeah, they only released it, and it wasn't like a wide release, but it was quite a few.
It was bad.
I'll admit, I could maybe see where they were going with this at first. You could argue it's kind of like a The Room situation. You know how in like LA there's like these midnight premieres of The Room, which is a terrible movie, but it's so fun to watch.
Yeah. And part of that is you go with a group of people. There's the people that are there have probably seen it 10 times, but they love it because it's so bad and they have fun. It's not just a bad movie. It's a bad movie that they love.
Yeah.
But there's a difference.
But the difference is with The Room, at least the creators now have kind of shifted their ideas. I don't know if I necessarily believe them. They're laughing with them.
Yes.
Sony and the people who dislike Morbius are laughing at Sony. I think they were banking on people coming in with groups of their friends and be like, yeah, let's laugh at this dumb movie and everything.
Yeah, and it didn't work.
It did not work.
No.
At all. So yeah, in case it wasn't clear before, if people are making a ton of memes about you, that does not mean they necessarily like you.
Doesn't always mean you're bad.
Okay, but in this case, it was.
I'll say in this case,
it very clearly was.
Yes. In this case, very clearly, the memes meant it sucked.
Yeah,
and they want nothing to do with it.
Yeah, but we're probably going to see a sequel to this movie. We're probably going to be talking about it again in a couple of years, so just wait for that. Yeah. But in the meantime, let's first talk about what's coming out this weekend, and just forget about Morbius for a little bit here. By the time this comes out, on Wednesday, June 8th, HBO Max is premiering with a documentary titled The Janes. This is a story talking about in the early 70s. Everyone talks about how nowadays is such a polarizing time. How did we survive the 60s and 70s?
Yeah, no kidding.
There was protests for everything back then.
I think one thing that the 60s has over us is they didn't have Twitter and that stuff. Could you imagine all that stuff that went on during the 60s with the whole social media and everything to go with it? That's
true.
Much more of a powder keg, I think, than
Roswell #fake didn't happen.
Yes.
And then you have the other people who are Roswell truthers, like right away.
They tried to storm Area 51 and like nobody showed up. If they would have done that in the 60s, millions of people
everyone would have showed up. But yeah, so this documentary actually talks about a group of people, I believe, did they say it was Philadelphia?
I think it was Philadelphia. Yeah.
That basically, they kind of came up with an underground secret system because at the time, abortions were completely illegal. Mm-hmm. This is very timely for what's happening now or potentially what might be happening now. Yep. I don't know, depending on when this comes out, when you watch this, I don't know what's going to happen in the next few days. I stopped guessing. But basically, it was completely illegal. None of it, no. And they basically kind of came up, a group of women who eventually they came up with the code name Jane.
Yep.
Because they were like, well, nobody's really named Jane anymore, so we don't want to be called by our actual names because it'll be easier to track us. So they came up with the word Jane, and they kind of became known as the Janes.
Yep.
Where they were kind of able to do these underground abortions, essentially, and it really details the whole process and
how it got started,
how they kind of got caught at a certain point, and everything. But yeah, like I said. They even mentioned, like, there were so many protests going on at the time, you guys, civil rights, all this other stuff. And I'm like, how did we make it through that?
Yeah.
It's kind of incredible. You couldn't throw a rock in any direction and not hit someone protesting something.
Not hit something hot button issue.
Yeah, someone holding a sign or something. Yeah. Much like, it would be exactly like today, except for it's all in memes.
A lot of it's in memes, in
meme form,
the virtual universes.
If Morbius came back out in the 60s, it would just be a bunch of people with picket signs being like, Morbius 2, it's Morbin time.
Yeah.
That's exactly what would have happened. But coming out Friday, June 10th, this is the big one, Jurassic World Dominion. The third movie in the Jurassic World, which is like part 2 of the Jurassic Park franchise. I don't know. It's the 6th movie of this movie to come out.
Yeah.
But I don't care about any of them. I only just like the first one, as many people do.
Yeah, first one was pretty good. Second one was not very
Third
good.
one was kind of
Yeah.
Fourth one was kind of until the very end. Then it was pretty cool. Fifth one, ugh.
Yeah. And
who knows where this one will land.
Yeah, I can guess that the end of the movie is going to end with Halley's Comet and or a meteor going to wipe out the world. And then this is like they forget when they're digging up all the dinosaurs, they're not including the humans that lived here before. They're doing just the dinosaurs. So this is like pre-dawn of Planet of the Apes. Maybe they're doing a crossover. Oh, that'd be sweet.
If that ends up happening, I'm putting it on the record right now. If that ends up happening, I'll give you $500.
Perfect.
I'll give
you guys heard it.
One for each of the crappy sequels that came out in this franchise. If that ends up happening, $500 going to you.
Straight cash.
No joking. I am hand on heart. Oh God, that might bite me in the butt. And then finally coming out this next weekend is Hustle. This is a Netflix release starring Adam Sandler. It's got a real Uncut Gems vibe.
Yes.
But I would say a little bit funnier than Uncut Gems.
Yeah.
Uncut Gems was trying really hard not to be funny for the most part.
Yeah.
This, I think, could be potentially Adam Sandler's best performance because he is funny. Maybe not as much recently, but he is funny. He's known for it. He got started on Saturday Night Live and all that, but he showed in Uncut Gems he could be kind of dramatic too.
Yeah.
This could potentially be a perfect blending of both of them.
Yes, and I agree because I loved Uncut Gems. I thought it was awesome. I would describe that movie as stressful because you're very on edge, kind of like hoping like, hey, hopefully he gets this. And this one, I feel the stress level's gone down, but I would say the drama aspect is the same. But because the stress is down, it gives that more time for those funny jokes or he's going to call in sick tomorrow at work. Like,
yeah.
Some of those are kind of...
There's some funny jokes and bits in here, too.
Yeah, and it'll fit much better with this. But I also think he partnered up with, like, LeBron James or something for this film. I saw in the trailer.
I think, isn't he a producer in this, or is he making a starring role?
I think he's just producing.
Okay.
But, I mean, going from working with Kevin Garnett and maybe LeBron James, like, oh, hey,
Yeah.
If he wants to make another basketball movie, I'll throw some money at that.
LeBron tried Space Jam, and that didn't work out too well.
out.
And he was like, well, Kevin Garnett looked pretty good in that Adam Sandler movie. Why don't I try Adam Sandler out?
Let's try that.
We've talked enough about Space Jam now, but let's move into a little Marshall 6 update here in Marshall, Minnesota. I was talking to the manager, Isaac, here recently. They're not going to have a lot of movies. They're really going to narrow it down to 3, but that means there's going to be a lot of showtimes for said movies. Jurassic World Dominion, you would have to go out of your way not to find a time where you're going to be able to go and watch this movie in the theater. Top Gun Maverick, I was just there last 2 nights, I should say, watching people come out. Those theaters have been packed. They're playing it in like multiple theaters, multiple times throughout the day. So you want to get there early if you want a showtime, if you want a good seat too. I'm not joking here, people. There's been a lot of people showing up for these movies.
Yeah.
And I think with the addition of Jurassic World, you're definitely going to want to get there with plenty of time.
Yep.
And to make sure you get your snacks and everything too.
Yep.
But with that, let's move into some number 1 recommends. Speaking of Top Gun Maverick, I'm actually going to use that as my number 1 recommend. I think I mentioned on the show before, I wasn't the biggest fan of Top Gun. A lot of people have been saying that. It's shown its age.
Yeah.
It's kind of worn off. This movie blows it out of the water. It is very much the same as Top Gun, but with way better effects, way better practical effects. I mean, when they're shooting themselves in these like jets, you could tell they're actually pulling these maneuvers a lot of times. Some of the story elements I think really work. The acting is surprisingly good. I won't say this is Tom Cruise's best performance, but he's definitely given it some. Miles Teller's great in this as well. Overall, just a really good time.
All right.
Really fun. So let's move on to you. What do you got for a number 1 recommend for us this week?
My number 1 recommend this week is Bob's Burgers. If you haven't seen it, I highly suggest checking it out. If you like the show, I highly recommend going to watch the film. It's basically an episode, but an hour and a half long. Characters are great. Story's great. The jokes are hilarious. A couple of the songs I thought ran a little long, but there's one song in there that I really, really liked. I'd say definitely check it out. I'm sure it'll be on like Hulu or something in a couple of months, but if you get a chance, check it out at the theater.
I feel like you could spin this one of 2 ways. You could say it's 1 hour and a half long episode, or is it 3 half an hour long, like a 3-part episode?
You know what? If you wanted to make it into a 3-part episode.
If you love Bob's Burgers and you just want a 3-part episode in one sitting, go and check it out in the theater.
Yeah, that's great. That's a great idea.
Bob's Burgers, if you need me for your marketing team, I'm available. Just saying. But that is going to do it for us here on this episode of Popcorn Bucket List. Be sure to let us know what you've been watching and things you'd like us to check out as well. And be sure to check out the Marshall 6 Theater website link for showtimes and all the updates for that. For myself and Ryan Meyerberg, we'd like to thank you so much for watching, and we will see you at the movies.